Woo, here is one of the chapters I have been excited to do since Ropafu 2. I really hope you all like it as much as I did making it. I know I shouldn't put quantity over quality, but I can't help but measure each chapter's success by how many reviews I get from it. Still bummed by how the Caribbean Part 2 chapter was received. Really wanted to add some Scott Pilgrim-esque into my story. Anyways, enjoy. Last time on Total Drama Luxury Tour, our teams had one final conflict before dissolving. They had to retrieve World War I turrets from the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. After bringing them up to their ships and fixing them up, they proceeded to blow the holy hell out of each other. Duncan and Gwen, who wanted to room in the luxury suite that is the captain's ship, threw the challenge and ended up sending DJ home. Now that teams have merged, where will our contestants go this time? Find out here on Total Drama Luxury Tour. Cut to Heather. The only standing ship sails towards its next destination in the early night sky. Heather was the one manning the ship for everyone. Suddenly she feels a cold hand touching her shoulder. Crap, she spontaneously said in a panic. Heather, I didn't know I was that intimidating to you, Alejandro said with a smug grin. Oh, it's you. Heather muttered with discontent. Who did you think it was? No one, I just got startled because it was so dark out here. Well, on a lighter note then, pun intended, I would like to ask you about Cody. What about him? Heather asked uncomfortably. Like I said before, since Alaska, I have been watching everything that transpired and I could not help but notice how popular the nerdling was with you ladies. As always, I have no idea what you are talking about. Don't play dumb. I know Sierra likes Cody, I know Bridget likes Cody, and I know someone else likes Cody. Alejandro gave an inquiring smirk towards the Queen Bee. I don't need to have this talk with you, Heather said as she angrily stormed off. Cut to Cody. Cody sneezed while sitting in his room. How am I gonna tell this to Gwen? The geek said to himself while trying to rehearse everything that pops up in his head. DJ wanted me to tell Gwen the cold hard truth about Duncan. But how can I? Cody wondered. Cut to Gwen and Duncan. I still feel bad for having to vote out DJ, Gwen confessed to Duncan. It's no big deal. The punk shrugged. Sure, he's out of the game, but it's not like we threw him to sharks or anything. I guess it'll be fine. Let's just concentrate on offing the rest of the competition, the delinquent said while ending the conversation. The ships eventually reached the dock port where their GPSs instructed them to go to. Where are we? Gwen asked while stepping out of the ship with everyone. And where's Chris? Tyler added. Suddenly a chariot drives by the group. A ghoulish-looking old man was the driver. He glares at them, following a gesture with his bony finger for them to hop into the horse-pulled vehicle. Does he work for Chris? Cody asked. Wouldn't surprise me, Heather responded. The 10 competitors nervously complied as the withered geezer whips the horses to pull the buggy towards their next destination. The horses pulled them for hours on end before they eventually are taken to a decrepit old castle. As the competitors step out, they are greeted by Chris, who is dressed in a lab coat, and Chef, who is dressed as Frankenstein's monster. Welcome, shipmates, to Brancastle, Romania. Their host announces, history tells us that this place once housed Vladiwi the Impaler, otherwise known as Count Dracula. Gwen eagerly finishes for him. As if on cue, thunder crackled loudly, panicking everyone. Indeed, some say his vampiric corpse still walks amongst the living within these walls. For today's challenge, all of you will be hunting the undead bloodsucker relying only on mallets and stakes, Chris instructed. But nothing can stop a sparkling vampire, Lindsay protested as the goth angrily glared at her. Gwen's face practically shriveled with how hard she frowned. She should have been eliminated on the spot for speaking about that trashy book. Chris continued. This challenge is fairly simple. To win invincibility, all you have to do is last till daylight alive. Either that, or slay the deadly vampire to ensure invincibility only for yourself. If you dare try, oh please, Dracula is just a story, Heather scoffed. Hey, that skeptic thinking won't do you any favors, Heather, Chris chuckled. Now each of you must spend the night at the castle during your hunt. If for whatever reason something happens to you during your stay, consider yourself eliminated from the challenge. Now good luck, vampire hunters. The teams hesitantly enter with their stakes and mallets into Bran Castle. As soon as the last competitor enters, the door slams shut and locks them all in. I don't think we'll be going anywhere, dudes, Tyler nervously said as they find themselves in the dark interior of the decaying building. Buck up, Tyler, Alejandro tells him. We can do this. Whatever Chris has for us, we can overcome. Guess we should split up, Duncan suggested. Fine by me, Heather said as she drags Cody away. Come on, Cody, let's bail on this bad company. I'm coming with you too, Sierra tells the queen bee. Me too, it's scary in here, Bridget said nervously. Then go together. Cody is in my alliance, Heather sneered at the two. He owes me for treating me so poorly last season. Courtney then cut in. Oh please, you had it coming. The queen bee shot at the CIT. Girls, come on. Let's just. Cody stopped mid-sentence while staring at the dark figure behind the group. Dracula. Everyone turns to see the large cloaked shadow hover above them. It was hardly visible to them. Only a massive shadow with glowing red eyes and the size of a full-grown man. Without warning, the shadow swoops down and snatches Bridget. It covers her mouth as it quickly flies away with her down the castle corridors. Everyone was in awe after hearing the muffled screams of the surfer girl fade away. Bridget, they all holler at once. What are we gonna do? Sierra asks in a panic. Come down. We just have to. Heather's words were cut short as thunder roared outside, scaring everyone off and fleeing in different rooms of the castle in their blind panic. Everyone now finds themselves separated and lost within the old building. Cut to Tyler. Lindsay, where are you, Linz? The jock nervously called for her in a cobweb-filled hallway. He then hears some creaking on the floor a few feet behind him. Lindsay. He nervously turned to see the shadow man standing behind him. Dracula, the jock said in a panic and began running. However, the jock trips on a loose floorboard and is thrown out the castle window while screaming. Cut to Alejandro. The Latin mastermind finds himself in the dining room. Nervously, he clenched his mallet and stake looking for the vampire. That thing was certainly bigger than Ezekiel, he said to himself, being reminded of the London incident. Suddenly, Alejandro heard a creak in the floor. He turned around to see one of the dining chairs floating in the air. The wooden seat then hurls itself at the archenemy. Alejandro, in a panicked state, dodged it, only to see more and more chairs hover above him. Chris doesn't have the budget for this, he said while fleeing from the oncoming chairs. Cut to Cody. Cody, now lost on the second floor, finds himself in another dark hallway. As the geek navigates through the darkness, he feels a hand grabbing his shoulder. Oh, Cody screamed in terror. Cody, it's me, Gwen said, reassuring him. Oh, hey Gwen, the geek embarrassingly grinned at his gothic crush. By the way, Cody, I was wondering if you wanted to form an alliance with me and Duncan, Gwen proposed. Cody nervously looked at her, reminded by what DJ told him back at the Mediterranean. Gwen, I can't. Why not? We can take out Alejandro and Courtney and eventually make it to the final three. I know you and him didn't always see eye to eye, but I'm sure we can work something out, the goth assured. Cody, is there something you want to let out? Gwen asked. What the hell do you want me to say, Gwen? Cody finally snapped at her. That I will start to like him, that I will grit my teeth and deal with him for the rest of the game. That is too much for me. But Cody, Gwen, make no mistake, I am grateful that you at least think of me as a friend despite my feeling for you. But I hate Duncan. Whatever you see in him, I cannot. To me he is a total jackass who gets off on the expense of others. He shows no remorse to the people he hurts, and for you to tell me that I have to forcefully align and cope with my most hated adversary being with the girl I would take a bullet and then some. No, that is too much to ask, even from you. Gwen sadly frowned at the geek. Even you are against me being with him. In the end, it's your decision. But let me ask you this, what do you like about him? Cody inquired. He and I share the same interests. We like the same movies, music, style. Gwen defended in frustration. Does other interests include pulling pranks on others, bullying the weak, arson and theft? What about all your other interests, Gwen? What about your drawings? Have you once made a sketch since dating him? What about the environment? Have you once even mentioned it since going out with him? And what about the rest of your friends? From Courtney to DJ, you always caved into Duncan on giving everyone else the cold shoulder. I am not saying this just so you would go out with me. Because I know damn well that telling you this here and now probably blows all chances of future consideration. But I know for one thing that you were never like this when you were with Trent. I am telling you this because I bottled it inside me since Greece. Duncan is wrong for you. As if on cue, the delinquent walks behind Cody after speaking his words of wisdom. You finished yet? Cody defiantly stood his ground. Yes, the geek then proceeded to walk the other way. The delinquent turned to Gwen. You okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Gwen responded uneasily. Well, looks like the kid won't be joining our alliance anytime soon. Guess we'll need to try and win over Tyler, Lindsay and Bridget if she's still in one piece, Duncan informed. I guess so. Let's split and search for them. I'll meet back with you later, Pasty. The couple parted. Gwen shed one tear for alienating her last friend. Cut to Tyler. Tyler recovers from the fall. Okay, where am I? Where? The jock finds himself in a hedge maze. He slowly walks down between the hedge walls looking for an exit but continues to find dead end after dead end. After a couple minutes of walking, he hears footsteps following his. Lindsay. The jock asked again nervously as he looked behind him. To the contrary, the figure behind him was none other than the same shadow that took off with Bridget. Aha! Tyler screamed as he flees through the plant labyrinth. The jock runs for dear life as the shadowy figure takes chase. Tyler's athleticism proved to be pointless as he reached his final dead end. Nice. Vampire. Showing no remorse, the shadow dives right at him. Cut to Heather. Heather was startled after hearing Tyler's scream from outside. She slowly backs away from the living room into another figure behind her. She yelped. Lindsay did as well. Oh, it's Lindsay. The queen bee said to her discontent. Hi, Hannah. Scared of the vampire too, Lindsay cheerfully asked. There are no vampires. This is just one of Chris's stupid games, Heather sneered. Suddenly another figure enters the room. The two nervously look as the shadowed entity slowly approaches them. The two hold each other in fear until it revealed to be none other than Bridget. Brenda. You're okay, Lindsay happily said. What happened? Heather asked the surfer girl. Nothing. Come here, you two. I have a surprise, Bridget said with a cruel grin as she was revealed to be much paler than usual. Bridget, Heather nervously said as she and Lindsay slowly back away. Don't be frightened. I only bite a little. The surfer girl then hissed while revealing two sharp fangs peeking out of her mouth. Vampire, Heather and Lindsay both scream as they fled for dear life. Cut to Courtney. The CIT walked into the castle kitchen. Cody, Alejandro, anyone, she called out while searching around the area. Suddenly, a nearby pot starts boiling on its own. Courtney nervously approaches it and reaches the top that covered the pot. As the lid was removed, a hand is shot out and tries to grab her. Courtney screamed, fleeing the vicinity. Cut to Sierra. Cody, where are you? Sierra beckoned for him to no avail. Maybe I'll run into him after completing the challenge. Now if I was a vampire, where would I sleep? Maybe the cellar. The stalker walked downstairs into the basement to search for the ancient bloodsucker. She soon realized how dark it really was. She reached into her pocket for a flashlight. Just as she turned it on, she sees Tyler grinning at her. Oh, hi Tyler, Sierra said while being startled. Hello Sierra. The jock said deviously. Why are you talking in such a low tone? Tyler said nothing and slowly approaches her. Tyler, Sierra notices fangs pointing out of his mouth and slowly backs away from the altered jock. As she backtracked, she bumped into another shadowy figure. She nervously looked behind her and saw the dark shadow that once nabbed Bridget. Without hesitation, it grabs her. Cut to Cody. Sierra, Cody shouted in concern after hearing her scream from the castle library. Another set of footsteps approached the geek minutes after. Gwen, Cody asked the shadow. Afraid not, Terp, Duncan said slowly approaching him. What do you want? Cody said angrily. You know I take exception to what you said about me earlier. I stand by what I said, the geek said defiantly. Duncan grinned and cracked his knuckles. You'll be crawling by what you said in a minute. You think this kind of stuff impresses Gwen? Well, she likes strong men, let alone men. The delinquent sneered. Do you even care what you are doing to her? What am I doing to her? Enlighten me. You're corrupting her. You're making everyone turn against her, Cody screamed at the punk. Deal with it. Because she trusts my word more than she trusts yours. Now then, where were we? Pipsqueak. Duncan approaches Cody, ready to clash. Fine, Cody said, not willing to back down. You won't cheap shot me this time. Thunder and lightning intensified, and the rain pelted the decrepit architecture as the two prepare to clash inside the castle library. Let's see what you got, Terp, Duncan said, snapping his neck to the side. Here it comes, Cody yelled angrily at his delinquent nemesis. The geek lunges at the punk and gets the first punch in. Duncan is set back and spits blood on the ground. Gotta do better than that, Terp. Let me show you how to really throw a punch. The delinquent punched the geek hard into the cheekbone, sending him flying down the library corridor. The geek struggles to get up as blood starts to trail from his mouth. Cody stumbles but regains his footing. Duncan charges at him again and throws another fist at the geek. This time, Cody ducked from the oncoming blow. Cody then rammed his forehead into Duncan's jaw. The delinquent quickly recovered, but the geek wasted no time in lunging at him once again. The scrawny little kid leapt onto the punk's shoulders and threw punch after punch into the punk's face, knocking him back on the ground. Eat this arsehole, Cody curses as he throws his barrage of right and left hooks. As Cody unleashes his fury, visions in his head reveal every dark deed Duncan convinced Gwen into doing. Dumping Trent, stealing the Diacast's clothes and hanging them on a flagpole, betraying Courtney in London, manipulating the geek in Australia, pickpocketing Sadie in Easter Island. You're ruining her, Cody screamed as he mercilessly landed blow after blow into Duncan's face. Duncan manages to throw Cody off of him. Feeling the bruises on his mug, the delinquent got angry. That's it, you're going down, you little fuck. Duncan slams his foot hard into the geek's ribcage, sending him rolling down the floor once again. The geek cringes in pain as he coughs out more blood. Cody gets up immediately, avoiding another kick from Duncan. The geek then throws both of his feet into the air and kicks the delinquent's abdomen with both legs. Duncan steps backwards in recoil. I'm not done yet, Cody said as he applies one last right hook with the same strength and velocity as it was in Greece. Duncan took the impact hard and fell to the ground. Cody recollects himself as he approached the seemingly unconscious punk. Suddenly, Duncan's eyes become wide open again. Psych, Duncan maniacally shouts as he knocks over the geek. Duncan sits on top of the downed geek and proceeds to punch Cody in the face over and over with much stronger force than the geek had mustered. After each unpudal blow, blood and pus spewed from the geek's face. In Cody's agony, he reached around in his pocket and pulled out his vampire hunting mallet. With it, he smacks Duncan in the side of the head, knocking him off of the geek. Alejandro is attracted by the commotion and enters the library as the two fought. Far be it for him to get between the love rivals, so he only grins at the two and smugly walks off. Meanwhile, as Cody continues to land blows on the dazed punk, more visions sprout in his mind, booting Beth for her weakness, booting Eva for her Achilles heel, ending Harold and Leshona's run for challenging their methods. Tears sprouted from Cody's eyes as the girl he was so crazy for had descended into the exact same monster as the delinquent. The kind loner that once attracted the geek had now become the deviant, selfish, mischievous, apathetic and cold female version of Duncan. Duncan once again recovered and gives the geek his own headbutt. The punk, more pissed than ever, hops back onto Cody, beats more blood and pus out of him. Gwen is with me, and she'll never like a scrawny little puke like you. The delinquent yells in the beaten kid's face, also hearing all this excitement going on. Courtney secretly peeks in the room to see the two fight. In newfound rage and adrenaline, Cody finally catches one of Duncan's fists and sinks his gap teeth into the punk's flesh. Go what? Duncan screamed in pain, and Cody takes the opportunity to elbow him hard into the face. This caused the punk to roll back off of him. Cody coughs out more and more blood before regaining his concentration. He noticed Duncan stumble more and more as he struggles to get up as well. Cody, not willing to lose this, waits for him to be ready for one final act of retribution. Fuck you, Duncan, Cody screamed with passion, zeal and bloodshot eyes as he landed one final right hook into the punk's jawbone. With the final blow to the face, Duncan plunges backwards to the ground, finally losing consciousness. Cody falls to his knees and coughs out more crimson himself but manages to regain his composure, though now in a dazed state. Wow, Cody, that was impressive. Courtney approached him, not realizing the slight blush on her face after seeing him brawl. Cody only looked shamefully away, not willing to be praised for fighting Gwen's boyfriend. Duncan, where are you? They heard Gwen calling for the punk just a few rooms away. The geek also didn't want Gwen to see what he had been doing, so he stumbled away to flee the scene. Courtney follows him as well. As the two managed to elude the goth, they eventually heard the loud gasp Gwen made after seeing her unconscious boyfriend. Later the two managed to reach a safe distance from the other two within the castle. "Cody, where did you learn to fight like that?" the CIT inquired. "Something's just come to you, I guess." He gave Courtney a bleeding gap-toothed grin before coughing some more blood out. "Hold still," Courtney commanded as she pulled out a small medical supply kit. She pulled out a rag and a cold pack from it. First she wiped the blood from Cody's face with the rag, and then presses the cold pack against the geek's cheek. Cody recoiled after its chilling feeling but coped with it thereafter. "Thanks, Courtney," Cody said graciously, surprised to see this side of her. "How come this part of you isn't brought out more? Don't push your luck, Terp." The CIT snapped back at him. "This is a reward for beating Duncan." "Fair enough," Cody conceded. "Still though, wouldn't these kinds of acts be just as effective leadership-wise as being critical to your struggling followers?" I can't show weakness, Cody. As soon as I do, I get betrayed. It happened with Harold back on the island, it happened with Gwen, and it happened with Duncan." The CIT miserably responded. "I guess I can understand that," Cody responded while recalling his actions toward her in Australia. "Well, at least I confidently know that deep down you're not all bad. Well, I confidently know that deep down, you're just a pipsqueak," the CIT responded sharply after regaining her ground. "And I hate being patronized." Hey, fair enough. "That being said, you gonna help me vote Duncan out?" "Well, that's a given," Courtney responded, conceding common ground with the geek. Cut to Gwen and Duncan. "Duncan, are you okay?" Gwen asked as her delinquent boyfriend struggles to get back up. "That cheap son of a bitch." Duncan furiously exclaims. "What happened?" Duncan, not willing to share his defeat at the hands of the geek, fibbed. "Blindsided by that Dracula thing, it knocked me halfway down the stairs." "Well, are you all right?" the goth asked with concern. "Nothing a little payback won't fix." Cut to Heather and Lindsay. After fleeing the vampire's worst Bridget, the pair found themselves hiding in one of the bedrooms. "Did we lose her?" Lindsay asked. "I think so," the Queen Bee replied. "She went all crazy." "Okay, I'm starting to slightly think perhaps this isn't just a challenge," Heather conceded. "Hello girls," Sierra walked in. "Oh, hi Sarah," Lindsay happily greeted. Heather looked at the Fangirl once she was more visible and noticed her paleness. "Lindsay, get back," Heather yelled as Sierra grabbed the dumb blonde. The Queen Bee was ready to take off again before the shadowed figure, responsible for all of this, grabbed her as well. Cut to Alejandro. How should I exploit that little tussle?" The Latin mastermind ponders to himself while inspecting the ballroom. Suddenly, he hears two pairs of footsteps approaching him. "Who's there?" Alejandro demanded to know. "Alf, you have been a bad boy." Bridget and Heather approached him slowly, breaking girls' hearts. The vampiric Queen Bee asked, "I think it's time we broke yours, literally." Vampire Bridget added, "Senoritas," he nervously asked as the paler of girls walked up to him. They both hiss at him with revealed fangs, and the scene fades to black after Alejandro's scream is heard. Cut to Cody and Courtney. "Any idea where Dracula's hiding?" Cody asked the CIT in the upper corridors. "No," Courtney said as she leaned against the wall. Her arm accidentally knocked over one of the nearby candlelights. All of a sudden, a clicking sound was heard as a shelf is moved to the side, revealing a secret passage. The two nervously look at each other. "Ladies first." Courtney nervously implied Cody to go in before her. The geek only sighed and walks in, followed by the CIT, who carried with her one of the candlelights. They walk into the mysterious hidden corridor into a secret chamber. The light revealed to them inside there was a coffin. "Do you think," Cody was about to ask, "open it," the CIT ordered. The geek gulped and slowly pushes off the heavy lid of the old casket. After the top was removed, the insides revealed to contain absolutely nothing. "No one's in here," Cody informed. The CIT gave a breath of relief before looking back at the geek. Cody stared past her in terror. "What is it?" Courtney asked before slowly turning behind her. "Dracula." They both scream in horror as the shadowed entity appeared them after following them into the room. His glowing red eyes gaze upon them as he approaches the pair. "Hurry, get out your stake and mallet," Cody commands as he does so himself. The wraith flew into the air and dived at the two. The geek and CIT jump both ways to avoid it. Courtney leaps back to her feet. She pulls out her stake and tries to ram it into the shadow's torso. However, it was too fast for her and knocked her back with its cloak. Cody leaps on its shoulders and aims his stake at its chest as well. "Hold still, you," the geek commands, though the shadow did not wish to comply. Dracula flies into the air once again with the geek latching on. It knocks into the wall as a means to knocking Cody off of it. "Eat this," the CIT yelled as she throws her mallet at the ancient vampire. The hammer strikes its head and it recoils in pain. With Cody weighing its dazed stake down, The shadowy being plummets back on the ground. Taking the opportunity, Cody waits for the ancient vampire to get up at the very first second to reveal its torso. As soon as Dracula did, the geek lunges his stake into its chest and applies the force of the mallet by hammering the wooden spike into the ancient vampire's heart. The being falls backwards lifeless. We did it, Cody and Courtney both say and hug each other in the heat of the moment. Courtney, finally realizing what she did, pushes Cody over. I did it, she smugly states. Chris and Chef walk into the secret room with their horror costumes as Frankenstein and his monster. Sorry, Courtney, but since Cody lodged the stake into the vampire, only he wins invincibility. The host informs, you've got to be kidding me, the CIT scoffs. Don't worry, Courtney, Cody comforts. We're gonna vote Duncan off this time anyways. The geek then inspects the slain bloodsucker, only to see it revealed to be none other than a spark shooting machine. He asks, how can you afford this type of technology? The host grins, told you this was our highest budget season ever. Suddenly, the horde of vampiric contestants composed of Tyler, Lindsay, Heather, Sierra, Bridget, and Alejandro storm into the secret room. Guys, the challenge is over. Chris annoyingly informs, oh come on, I just applied the white makeup. Alejandro expresses his disdain while removing the fake vampire fangs from his mouth. Dang, and playing vampire was kinda fun. Heather begrudgingly confesses. Who won? Tyler asks. Cody. Chris answers back. That's my Cody muffin. The vampiric stalker was about to happily hug the geek but notices his beaten face. Codykins, what happened? Cody was hesitant to tell his stalker the truth. I was hit pretty hard by the vampire. Are you alright? Bridget asks with concern as well. I'll be fine. Don't worry, the geek reassures. Don't just shrug this off. Heather angrily steps in. If something happens to my alliance member, how will I win the million? Don't listen to them, Codykins. I will nurse you back to health, Sierra said, while glaring at the other two. Alejandro watches this conversation and smirks after pondering on a new scheme. Well, that concludes our stay in Bran Castle. Let's find Duncan and Gwen and meet back at the sardine ceremony. I'll see all of you on the ship, Chris announces. Later, after regrouping with Duncan and Gwen, everyone prepares to reboard the chariot back to the ship. Gwen notices Cody just as bruised and beaten as Duncan was, and puts two and two together. She did not know what to say to either of them. Alejandro, however, knew exactly what to say when he secretly pulled Duncan to a secluded spot. What do you want? The beaten delinquent inquires angrily. Duncan, buddy, I couldn't help but notice that Cody did a number on you, the Latin mastermind informs. The Terp got a cheap shot in. Duncan angrily scoffs. You gonna let this go? Of course not. That punk is gonna get his. Well, maybe I can help. We can form an alliance against him. Alejandro proposes. Why do I need your help to take him out? Duncan questions. You may find this hard to believe, but Cody seems to have wooed a number of ladies in his old team. Sierra, Bridget, and even Heather seem to have taken a liking to him. Alejandro informs the delinquent. No way, Duncan denies in disbelief. Whether you believe it or not, you can believe that the four will most likely recruit Courtney in voting you off tonight. Now, there is a way around this obstacle. What is it? Duncan asks as Alejandro grins. Make no mistake, I know Alejandro is a deceitful bastard. But with his plan and Gwen having my back, that Terp is gonna wish he never crossed me. Of course he has immunity this time around. However, later, the grim old chariot driver signals the group as they all hop back in the horse buggy. After another few hours of returning back to the ship, the group leaves the buggy. Bridget looks nervously at the old man and turns to Heather. You don't suppose it? Oh please. Heather scoffs. We proved that vampires don't exist. Everyone leaves the chariot and hop back onto the ship. The bony old chariot driver watches the ship set sail before his eyes glowed beet red. He then whips the horses to pull the buggy away as a horde of bats flies out of it. Cut to sardine ceremony. Everyone anxiously sits on the bleachers, hoping they would be safe from tonight's elimination. Cody looked at Courtney, who nodded at him. He then looked at Heather, Bridget, and Sierra, who also nodded, implying that he had their votes. Chris announces, welcome to our first merge sardine ceremony, shipmates. Whichever one of you who doesn't receive a can of sardines tonight will be walking the plank of shame. Since Cody won invincibility, he gets the first sardine can. Cody happily receives his can of sardines, symbolizing his safety from today's elimination. The next person who is safe is Courtney. Chris continues. The CIT happily receives her sardine. Then it's Heather, Tyler, Lindsay, Alejandro, Bridget, Gwen. Just one more can left, Chris informs, adding to the suspense. Sierra and Duncan nervously look at each other. And the last person receiving it is Duncan, Chris shouts, as nearly everyone gasps in disbelief. But how? Cody was in utter disbelief. Sierra sadly got up and receives her life jacket and turns to Cody. Win for us, Codykins. She was about to squeeze the geek but manages to restrain herself and only gave her a soft hug. A note: you don't like being hugged too hard, the Fangirl sadly said. It's okay, Sierra. Cody smiled up at her and gave her a friendly hug of his own to her delight. As Sierra walks towards the plank of shame, she sadly turns back to Cody. Please remember me as you make it through the rest of the competition. Wait, Chef stepped into the ceremony. What is it, Chef? Chris inquired. I received an anonymous tip to recheck my video cameras during the voting, Chef informed. Duncan nervously looks at Alejandro, who only responds with a smug smirk. This is unorthodox, Chris says as he receives and puts in the videotape. It revealed Chef chatting idly with Duncan about war stories during the voting. Behind the pair, it also revealed Gwen to be swapping the ballot boxes with votes against Sierra. Gwen, Cody shouted in disbelief after watching the truth to the Fangirl's elimination. Cody, I thought you didn't like her, and I wanted to keep Duncan in the game, Gwen responded back in panic. Cody turned to Chris. See, the ballot was fraudulent. Sierra's still in the game, isn't she? Well, since it's Sierra. Chris shoves the Fangirl off the plank of shame. That's for blowing up my plane, Cody. Sierra screamed for him as she plummeted into the sea. Sierra, Cody shouted back at her. After the ship leaves the Fangirl, Cody could only turn back to Gwen. Cody, I'm so sorry. The goth apologized to the best of her ability. Cody only frowned back at her and left the ceremony, refusing to acknowledge the goth's presence any further. Duncan and Gwen then notice everyone else glaring at the two, except for Alejandro, who was enjoying these turn of events. Cody stayed silent for a bit before speaking. That's it. I'm over my attraction to Gwen. I guess since Sierra's starting to restrain herself, maybe after the show. What have I done? The goth puts both hands on her head after realizing how much damage she had been inflicting. What have I been doing? Smooth move, knew Heather, Courtney stated. Getting Sierra voted off would have turned Cody against me, but now that Gwen got her voted off, Heather smirked. Bridget sighed, though I feel really bad for what happened to Sierra. I can now finally tell Cody how I really feel about him, and I promise you I will never let that heartless witch hurt him again. Alejandro started chuckling, before his chuckle turned to laughter. Ha ha ha, absolutely perfect. Getting Duncan and Gwen to cheat Sierra off means everyone will be after them instead of me. Not only that, but now that Cody's watchdog is gone, Heather and Bridget will bring out their affections toward him and eventually go for each other's throats. Meanwhile, I sit back and enjoy having Tyler and Lindsay wrapped around my finger. This game is mine. A little harsh there, Chris, Chef informed the host. She blew up my plane. The host defended before turning towards the camera. Will Duncan and Gwen receive their comeuppance? Find out next time on Total Drama Luxury Tour.
Sanity.